So, one of the first things you'll want to do when you download any text editor, be it idle, and start getting working with it, is to mess with the settings a little bit. So over here you can see this is a bit tiny. This is because the stuff on my screen is a bit tiny because I keep, as a matter of preference, things to be at 100% just for my particular setup. If it was at 150, you can see it's blown up a bit here. And it was a bit blurry, but if I had logged in with it being at 150, it would be nice and clear. But anyway, as it stands, it's small, and even if on 150, I'd want to increase the size. I like playing with the big font. So what I did over there to open the settings is I go to Options, Configure Idle, and depending on what you use, be it Geany or VS Code, which I'll eventually switch to for this class. But I like to start out with idle because that's what most of the students are going to be using. Or something more advanced like PyCharm. Doesn't really matter. Can't really use fixed sys over here. Well, actually, can I? So I could take a font, something retro like this, and blow it up quite a bit. But actually, I'm going to go with, on Windows at least, what goes well with all their other fonts, if you're using a monospace font, is Consolis. Okay. Now, it's important that if you're changing the font, you want to choose something that is what's called monospaced. And monospaced, so with letters and the like, right? Let's go ahead and choose, let's go to Constantia, which is not a monospaced font, okay? So we've got all these different letters, but they don't necessarily take up the same amount of space, right? A space takes up, a C doesn't take up as much as takes up more than an L does. And an A takes up a pretty decent amount of space. 1 and 2 take up different amounts of space over there. And when you're dealing with code, you like being able to line things up. With line letters up, so you want to use something that's called monospaced. And what monospaced fonts are, they're like Courier, that's kind of the default one, is that everything from a 1 to an O to a 0 to an L to an L to a J or an I, right, they all take up the same amount of horizontal space in your fonts. Now, it's possible to go a bit overboard and spend too many hours just debating about what the best font is and what's really going to make you best. That's just what's going to make your coding experience the best. That's just a fancy way of procrastinating. So I would go with basically what your operating system's default font is, just because that'll work. I don't know what Mac currently uses as their default font for monospaced, but there's probably some variation of their San Francisco font. Consolis is used by Windows. Almost every system has Courier New, which just looks very old-fashioned in my opinion, but I find Consolis to be very, very, very readable. My personal favorite is Fira Code, which I'll use once I download it, but otherwise, the important thing is to make it easy to read for your particular screen. I'm going to have it like at a pretty high setting, just simply so that it's easier to read when you're watching a video. This should be, I wish I could choose like 32, but such is life. We'll go with 29, and there we go. So just messing with the settings, finding something that you like, just having the code like this just doesn't really work for a lot of people. Actually, I don't think it really works for anybody. It's not fun. And so now we have something that's very nice and easy to read.